They say work hard and you'll get ahead, but I'm just breaking my back instead. Clocking in just to pay that rent. Ain't much left when the day is spent. Boss man talking about living the dream that's built on my routine. They raise the price, we keep the pace, running in place just to stay in the race. We built this town with our two hands, blood in the dirt, sweat in the sand. They make the rules, we make it stand. Yeah, this land runs on the working man. Bills stack high, paychecks thin, round and around that wheel we spin. They fly first class, we drive beat trucks, still showing up when the world gets rough. We built this town with our two hands, blood in the dirt, sweat in the sand. They make the rules, we make it stand. Yeah, this land runs on the working man. That keeps it spinning round. One more day, we'll take that stand. You can't buy soul from the working man. We built this town with our two hands, blood in the dirt, sweat in the sand. They make the rules, we make it stand. Yeah, this land runs on the working man. We built this town with our two hands, blood in the dirt, sweat in the sand. They make the rules, we make it stand. Yeah, this land runs on the working man. Train wreck with the last call long neck. I was searching, I've been hurt real bad. Moving on, getting sidetracked. One step forward and five back. Not your fault, I was scared to fall. And I don't know why you saw something in me, baby. Star in the pitch black, shine the way on the way back. Out of nowhere, answered all my prayers. Picked up the towel that I threw in, took in a heart that was ruined. Showed me the past ain't a tattoo. Love me even when you didn't have to. Yeah, I know you didn't leave me lonely. Weren't the one who put the heartbreak on me. Picked up the pieces, it wasn't
someone else's arms. It would break my heart, but I try to be happy, knowing that you're happy. But why would I even try to hide what I feel inside? Girl, when you look at me, I think I go crazy. Nothing could save me. Thinking you hate me would break me in two. Baby, I don't wanna know what alone looks like. Staring at my phone in the middle of the night in a king-size bed, baby, cold as ice. I don't wanna know what alone looks like. I don't know how to live without you being anything but mine. I'd be a wreck if you said goodbye. I don't wanna know what alone looks like. If I found out you hit a knee with a diamond ring, give you everything, and you just erase me, I think I go crazy. Nothing can save me. Thinking you hate me would break me in two. Yeah, I don't wanna know what alone looks like. Staring at my phone in the middle of the night in a king-size bed, baby, cold as ice. I don't wanna know what alone looks like. I don't know how to live without you being anything but mine. I'd be a wreck if you said goodbye. I don't wanna know what alone looks like. Baby, I don't wanna know what alone looks like. Staring at my phone in the middle of the night in a king-size bed, baby, cold as ice. I don't wanna know what alone looks like. I don't know how to live without you being anything but mine. I'd be a wreck if you said goodbye. I don't wanna know what alone looks like. Underneath the neon moon, boots on dusty ground, whiskey whispers in the air, stars are spinning around. A six-string strums, a fire burns, shadows start to dance. This ain't just a bar tonight, it's a second chance. Clap your hands, stomp your feet, feel that rhythm catch the beat. Rodeo lights, they're shining bright. We're gonna party till the morning light. Raise your hands, shout it loud. We're the wild ones in the crowd. Rodeo lights, oh, take us high. This ain't just a song, it's our battle cry. Fiddle hums, hearts begin to race. The bass drops in and every soul is lost in this embrace. Cowboy hats and glitter glow, a fusion of two worlds. Country roots with EDM, let that flag unfurl. Clap your hands, stomp your feet, feel that rhythm, catch the beat. Rodeo lights, they're shining bright.
you move slow. Then you jump on time when the kick drum meets that whiskey line. Stop once, clap twice, hey, feel that rolling dice. Are you ready for the ride tonight? Are you ready for the ride tonight? Let's go, go, go. Boots on the bass, hey, hands in the sky. Hey, we don't come down, we only get high. So boots on the bass, hey, floor on fire, hey, country energy in a festival wide. So boots on the bass, oh yeah, boots on the bass, oh yeah, boots on the bass. Turn it up, don't stop, yeah. Little dirt on my shirt, but I feel brand new. Got that long neck shine, going shot for shot with you. You say one more song, I say one more drop. When the synths come in, all the hurt just stops. Just stop, just stop. Stomp once, clap twice, hey, spin you like the lights. Are you ready for the ride tonight? Are you ready for the ride tonight? Come on! Boots on the bass, hey, hands in the sky. Hey, we don't come down, we only get high. So boots on the bass, hey, floor on fire, hey, country energy in a festival wide. So boots on the bass, ooh yeah, boots on the bass, ooh yeah, boots on the bass. Turn it up, don't stop. Oh, we're shouting, oh, no doubting, oh, from the
replacing Barcelona in that slot, having that been shoved up now to the penultimate round. So just to give a brief update there on the rather confusing state of affairs in the calendar here for season 4. We've been following on board there with Owen Camu for the longest time. 1:44.080 to beat as he crosses the line here, just on the advent of qualifying. Across the line, stays fastest with the exact same time there. 1:44.080 by the number 1 McLaren of Owen Camu, leading this championship. Heading into qualifying, are things going to be so peachy as he only finds himself here only 2 tenths up the road from Nick Alexander, and then 3/4 of a second, just a little over actually, from Rudolph's Lady X. It's the big 3 of manufacturers in the current ACC meta. McLaren, Ferrari, and Ford in that top 3. But keep a close eye to the Mercedes cars there. It is worth pointing out, Mercedes has been on somewhat of a ubiquitous rise in the last couple of months among several manufacturers, including Bentley, and also in recent memory as well has been Nissan over on VSR's last season. The season we have now, all of those not those Bentleys, all of those Nissans are gone, and in their place are the Mercedes cars now used by drivers like McNally and Evans. So at the end of that session, Camus fastest, Alexander second, Lanier third, Mackenzie 4th, and Nzuzi in the top 5. Evans 6th, Picconi 7th, McNally in 8th place. Brockman on his first ever free practice session in this series makes a very close 9th there. When you take a look at the gaps up in front, he's only having a glance at it there, just shy of 0.04 of a second away from McNally on the back of that 4th row. If that were qualifying, that would be razor thin between the pair, but you haven't seen anything yet on the topic of razor thin. We'll get into that though when we get on the discussions of the qualifying predictions by Simbot. There's no time like the present then. 15 minutes of qualifying here in round 3 of the championship here for MSC ACC GT3 Series Season 4. And leading that charge out of the paddock then, we see here from the point of view of the number 13, actually up in front of him is Rudolf's Lanier, but there, allowing through the procession of the Ferrari of Nick Alexander is Rudolf's Lanier in the Mustang. So Alexander leads the charge out through turn 1. Now we'll use this as an opportunity not only to discuss the qualifying predictions, but also to give ourselves an unofficial track tour of this fantastic circuit. It has produced a very unique variety of racing in the last couple of months across a multitude of series we've covered here on TRT. And taking a look though at the qualifying predictions at hand, Nick Alexander predicted at pole position 1:43.440. That puts him just shy of 4/10 up over Owen. Camus predicted second with a 1:43.820. Milan Picconi predicted at third with Lewis Mackenzie 4th, Jaden Johnson 5th, and Bartek Kowalik in 6th. I want to point out inside of that top 5 there, we spoke of razor thin gaps. Get a glance at that one. Mackenzie v Johnson, 2 thousandths in difference there for control of 4th place under predictions alone. We'll see if that materializes in today's session. Further down the line then, Grady and Nzuzi predicted in 7th, Timo Fire 8th, Jonathan Barrett 9th, and Wesley Ambrose predicted in 10th. So it's going to be curious to see how close to the bar we get, especially in the talks of that top 5 over the course of this qualifying session. You have to forgive me for the slightly scratchier tone of voice. I am starting to come down with something, not quite clear what. Might be the flu, not 100% sure. And no time like this weekend, I imagine, considering that we aren't going to be with you for Sunday. We're on the Easter weekend, so no Sunday League this weekend. Only tomorrow's race at the Competizione Performance League World Series. Across the line then goes Nick Alexander to start his first flying lap of qualifying. We'll stay on board here with Alexander. Already a race winner in this series. Alexander down through to turn 1. Now this is going to be the site of some major controversy if the drivers get really handsy on that race start. We saw a real life example to give great example for was the 2021 Hungarian Grand Prix. A huge melee down through turn 1, and that's only followed up here down at turn 2. This sort of counter flowing open hairpin left then gives us a bit of a kink round to the right here at turn 3. The drivers can open the taps up on the run uphill into this blind left-hander. Now this is eerily reminiscent of some other corners we've seen in the last couple of months on a few different of the MSV circuits, namely the Sheen Curve over at Brands Hatch and Coppice over at Donington. However, unlike those two, this one runs around to the left. We're out through turn 5 now to turn 6 and 7. Very, very sharp chicane here. Easy to pick up track penalties, track limits penalties over the course of the race here. We've seen that to be plenty of case across GT3 and GT4 out through turns 8 and 9, now down to turn 10. Now this whole section of the track is where this track gets its sort of praise from Formula 1 talent on feeling like an oversized go-kart track. It's very winding and undulating there. It requires good pedal control and good situational awareness. Down through turn 12, major overtaking opportunity down through there, and that's followed up here at the parallel hairpins at turns 13. Now through to turn 14. Now 14 a little bit more open than 13. Turn 13 is a lot more of your conventional open hairpin left, but this one is a much wider radius, so the drivers can afford to get on the throttle a little bit earlier on exit. So down to the line goes Alexander, 143.965. Then across the line went Rudolph's Laniak, 795 thousandths off the fastest time. Sam Brockman in third. That's now down to fourth, courtesy of Sean McNally. And these times are just going to continue to roll in. Jonathan Barrett momentarily in fifth as Milan Picconi now takes third, forcing McNally and Brockman down a position. Number 777 and number 444 to the line. So Lee Evans makes a time onto the charts there, unlike that of Liam Morrissey. We see as well Leroy Donald up to third fastest. Number 1 across the line a moment ago, Owen Camu now a single tenth away from that fastest time. So as it stands right now, the top 5, Alexander, Camu, Laniak, McKenzie and Donald. 3 Ferraris, 1 Ford, 1 McLaren as it would stand. Jaden Johnson across the line a moment ago, brand new livery on the 108. We see the Bentley now 8th fastest, up and ahead of McNally. Not too far off a shout there of Evans in 7th place. Number 66 across the line, Alan O'Brien in 13th. Then across the line from behind him went the number 96 across the line just a moment ago. That was the Aston Martin of Robert Ogan to start flying laps. Number 67 and number 43 across the line from behind. The number 67 of Timo Fire, another Aston Martin on this grid, 11th fastest. Then from behind him, the 43. That looks to be here, Sean O'Grady. A driver we saw in very fleeting amounts last season. I do seem to recall seeing O'Grady in the last 2 rounds of Season 3. So now making his debut for Season 4. Having last season spent his time with Ferrari, now we see him with McLaren in the number 43. Unique colour scheme as well. Not often do we get to see a mixture of blues and golds. I mean, it is rather interesting indeed. Number 112 and number 247 across the line a moment ago. 112 being Rudolph's Laniak, stays third fastest for the time being. You see behind him there the BMW number 247. That's Ben Dexter, having yet to have put a time on the charts. Across the line a moment ago went the number 29. Milan Picconi stays inside of that top 10, but he's 6th fastest at the moment, tucked in behind Leroy Donald and Lewis McKenzie. Across the line a moment ago goes Donald. From behind him, the 444, that's the AMG of Lee Evans. Number 1, number 44, and number 35, I believe, there, just across the line a moment ago. The 44, McKenzie, stays 4th. Number 1 stays 2nd. And then we see the BMW down there, the 35, Bartek Kowalik in 14th place. Now we see a new shift there onto the charts. 148 across the line a moment ago. Again, I keep reading that as 148. It's 144, Grady and Zuzi in 8th place. I really need to get an eye test. Well, that's a bit of a wake-up call. Number 66 and number 96 across the line a moment ago. Robert Ogan into the top 10 there. 9th place with Aston Martin. Number 43 and number 67 across the line a moment ago. Again, that would be for Timo Fire and for Sean O'Grady. O'Grady 19th, Fire 13th. 999 across the line a moment ago as well was Jonathan Barrett, 14th in the session. Nearest to the line is the number 13 cars. We'll try and catch on board with them as and when we can acquire them. And that would be Nick Alexander at the leading part of the field there. Recent improvement from 143.9 to a 143.547. Raises the bar now north of Camu by just over half a second. Meanwhile, Laniak stays third after his last lap just gone. The 247 across the line a moment ago. Ben Dexter 18th. Number 4 following in his trails there. McNally 7th. Number 29 across the line a moment ago as well, as things would stand. And that was for Milan Picconi. Number 86 of Scaparo across the line. Still yet to put a time on the charts. A confusing one indeed. Leroy Donald leading the charge there, up and ahead of Morrissey and Evans. Donald stays in the top 5. Neither of the cars behind him could have made any progress in that last lap. Number 1 across the line a moment ago, and he does bring the gap down, so credit where credit's due here to Owen Camu. He is really rolling with the punches in this session so far. We see pulling to one side there Leroy Donald, now back into the pit lane. We'll catch on board with the nearest car to the line. It'll be the 96, I believe, here, so having a look around to try and find them. Struggling a tad there to locate them. Robert Ogan across the line stays inside of that top 10. You can see the gap as things stand between himself and McNally, 93 thousandths of a second for control of 9th place. And speaking of close gaps, McKenzie v Laniak's one in consideration here. You take a look to find 12 thousandths of a second worth of available time between the pair, the number 44 Ferrari and the number 112 Mustang. Speaking of, we see here with Laney X down through turn 13, 6.5 minutes left to go here in quali for round 3 of the championship. What was originally slated to be round 4, but service had a funny way of working last week. So down to the line goes Laney X, 1.2 seconds to clear for the fastest. I needed about 9/10 of that to make second. Couldn't find even a budge over it in that last lap just gone. Number 4 nearest. Here comes McNally. From behind him, Picorni. McNally stays ninth. Picorni leaps from 6th to 3rd. Now ahead of Laney X. So a new fighter enters the fray for that top 3. 2 Ferraris now inside of the podium for the start of this race. Nearest the line, we see here Evans and Camus. Then behind them is Morrissey. Evans stays 7th, Camus stays 2nd. What of Morrissey from 19th? The 777 across the line stays 19th in that last lap just gone. Number 108 nearby to the line. We'll try to locate them here. Across the line was Jaden Johnson, who's just squeezed out of that top 10 at the moment. You can see the gap between himself and Robert Ogan is coming down quite rapidly, we see here. This is in the scope of, I believe, having a glance, is 21,000 in between the Aston and the Bentley for 10th place. Number 66 across the line a moment ago. That was for having a look here, Alan O'Brien. Now gets closer to the fellow O'Brien of the grid, Daniel O'Brien. And these two, 12th and 13th. Nearby to the line among several cars is Brockman. Up in front of him looks to be Barrett. Barrett stays 17th. Brockman now 13th. Splitting the tide of the 2 O'Briens. Number 67 across the line a moment ago. Timo Fire with Aston Martin stays 16th. Just behind him there, that's Leroy Donald. Very enthusiastic start to his flying laps. Currently within a stab of that top 5, so with every reason for him to push the way that he is. 4.5 minutes just under left to go in quali. Time is money here for the number 14. Down to the line goes the number 4. And for Sean McNally, 8th fastest. Number 29 from behind him there, Milan Picorni, stays in 3rd. With 4 minutes left to go, is coming back into the pits. Number 86 nearest to the line. That's for Sebastian Scaparo, finally to enter the timing charts. From 22nd goes to 15th. From behind him, the number 1 and the number 444. Both across the line there, but neither progressing beyond their current position. Owen Camus stays in 2nd, but that gap is starting to crawl down between himself and Nick Alexander. And as for the 444 of Lee Evans, he stays ahead in 7th place of the Mercedes of McNally. We see recently across the line then Johnson to 8th place, now back up into the top 10. Number 112 nearest to the line. For Laney X, he's still in a reluctant P4. You can see the gap that exists between himself and Picorni is in the scope of some, looking here, 78 thousandths roughly between the pair. Actually, no, that's... Yes, that is about 78 thousandths of a second between Picorni and Laney X. Barrett across the line a moment ago stays 18th. From behind him was the 55 across the line. And that was for Sem Brockman. Now 14th in the session. And is 99 thousandths away from Daniel O'Brien in 13th place in front. We can see, though, for plenty of drivers, the fatigue of this track already setting in early doors. Leroy Donald across the line to start another flying lap. He's still 6th in this session. Still tantalizingly close to an opportunity here on the 44 of Lewis McKenzie to make his way into that top 5. Now, it's super thin when you consider these 4 cars here from looking at it 3rd down to 6th. As front to back, you're dealing with the scope of about 250 thousandths of a second. So about a quarter of a second exists between these 4 over the scope of this qualifying session at large. Nearest to the line, number 86, so we catch on board here with Scaparo, made his way from 22nd to 16th in the last lap just gone. Across the line, stays there. From behind him was the, having a glance, see in the background among them was Bartek Kowalik, currently 12th in the session, but tucked in behind him, so it appears, is the, oh, wasn't Barrett, it was Morrissey. Oh, that was a sizable incident there for those two. Again, you'll have to forgive the slightly more monotone inflection of voice, because I am starting to come down with something of a horrid illness. Not quite sure what yet. Still working that out myself, but having a bit of an effect on the throw. Nearest to the line, 999 then, being Jonathan Barrett. From behind him, we see Sam Brockman. Barrett now 16th. Brockman to the line from 14th. Stays 14th. So we enter the final rung of flying laps for many a driver. Now beginning their final one from 18th place at the moment, Timo Fire. But he pulls the plug on his performance here. The 67 at the best of times looks to start at the back of the 9th row of this grid. Number 14 the line, across the line, I should say, from just a moment ago. And that's Leroy Donald. We catch just on board with them there. Believe you me, that's the smoothest transition we're getting off of these cameras. The number 14 now 6th fastest and stays there for the time being. He's got one more opportunity, so it appears then, to make a dent in that top 5, and he's dangerously close to doing so. Gap between himself and Lewis Mackenzie, about 160,000 to 10th and 600th between the pair. We'll catch on with him towards the end of this flying lap. We see, as things stand at the moment, Nick Alexander is in the paddock, and so too is Owen Camus, and so too is Milan Picorni. So the only driver left to make a dent on that podium is going to be Rudolf Slanieks, and he might just be beaten by the bell here in qualifying. Making his way down through turn 14 here at the Hungaroring. Can the Mustang break the line in? Less than a tenth of a second between himself and Picorni. It's Ferrari versus Ford for third place. Across the line goes Slanieks. He's third at the end of this session and makes the second car to break within a second of that fastest time set by Alexander. Slanieks starts at the front of that second row then and makes a dent into the podium. Number 144 and 44 across the line a moment ago. Lewis Mackenzie makes 5th as it stands at the moment. Grady and Zuzi 9th. The 999 nearest the line. That's Jonathan Barrett. On his way to the line from turn 14. Can he make a dent in the top 15? Yes, he can. 13th for the end of this session. Great stuff then. Number 86 still out on track at the moment, Sebastian Scaparo, and that's the same story for Liam Morrissey. Now to give an update on the situation for Leroy Donald, he backed out of that flying lap and is now in 6th permanently for this qualifying session. No sort of take backs on that one unless someone disconnects in front of him. Hopefully, you know, fingers crossed that's not the case in today's session. So as it stands then, 2 more cars, now only one, being Scaparo on his way to the line at the end of this qualifying session. Nick Alexander on pole position, Owen Camus second, Rudolf Slanieks in a recent third, Milan Picorni 4th, and Lewis Mackenzie rounds out the top 5. We'll get a full look at the grid in a moment's time. Sadly, nothing to discuss over the course of the 5-minute break, normally where we get to discuss some news, usually in relations to, you know, we spoke Formula 1, we spoke rally in recent weeks, but sadly, we've come up empty-handed this time around, so we'll just be discussing the grid at hand. Down to the line then goes Sebastian Scaparo from 17th, crosses the line, stays there at the end of this session, is shy of 16th by a measly 5 thousandths of a second. Super close stuff there, just outside of the top 15. So as it stands then, Alexander on pole, Camus second, Slanieks third. We'll get a full look at the grid in a moment's time. What a breakthrough though for Rudolf Slanieks. He was hunting down that spot on the podium the entirety of this qualifying session. Of course, Ford, when we take a look back to balance of performance, they're by no means heavy in this race, but that 20% restrictor on a track where they're not able to let that V8 sing as long as it should, bar the opening straight, is one that they're definitely seeming to struggle at, especially when they need a lot of that power low down in the power band for them, and a lot of that torque that makes the V8 engine under the bonnet of that Mustang so special. To work with a 20% restrictor and still pull away to a 3rd place finish in quali, that takes some serious guts. So for the Latvian talent, hats off there. The 112 for 3rd place. Let's get a look at the grid then. We've got about 5 minutes then before today's race. Now, before we get a look at the grid, just to remind you of the regulations at play, we're in the midst of a 5-minute break right now, and then we come up onto 60 minutes of racing with 1 mandatory pit stop for fuel only. No tyres required. That's a totally optional element of today's pit strategy. But taking a look at the grid then, with just about 4.5 minutes left to go before the formation lap, we're on board here with the 13 that starts on pole position. Nick Alexander against Owen Camus. These two having become championship rivals over the last course of the last couple of weeks, I should say. Now mark that entirety of the front row. Slanieks on a recent breakthrough to 3rd, then starts up and ahead of Milan Picorni, who starts all the way up in the 2nd row. We don't often get to see Picorni inside of that top 5, so this is going to make a very curious one. Is this sort of his... is this sort of a kryptonite situation for the rest of that grid, and this has allowed Picorni to really flourish? This is not the track everyone expects to be good at. This is one that Picorni has really broke through into that top 5 for. It's going to be curious to see what he can do over the course of this race. Rounding out that top 5 then is Lewis Mackenzie, Leroy Donald on the back of the 3rd row, and Ferrari's from 4th all the way down to 6th there inside of the top 10. Lee Evans starts in 7th, and alongside him on the 4th row there, Jaden Johnson in the 108 Bentley. Grady and Zuzi in 9th, with Sean McNally rounding out the top 10 on the back of the 5th row in 10th place. On the 6th row then, Robert Ogun and Bartek Kowalik, and then behind them on the 7th row is Jonathan Barrett and Daniel O'Brien. New driver to the grid then, Sam Brockman, starts in 15th place on the front of the 8th row and alongside the number 66 of Alan O'Brien. Behind them on the 9th row, Sebastian Scaparo and Timo Fire, Ben Dexter and Liam Morrissey on the 10th row, 19th and 20th respectively. On the back row then, 11th row for Sean O'Grady and Marcelino Fernandez Pedra. McLaren from 20th to 22nd at the back of the field there. Here in Silverstone, a brilliant start then we see there from Owen Camu, trying to get up and around the outside. It's comes out between Pasqualini and Bowen and open for full 4 wheels. 3 years ago in 2023. Before that, it would have been the European Truck Racing Championship or the World Touring Car Championship before it was replaced by TCR World Tour. So as we wait then for the start of the formation lap, about 1 minute and 10 seconds left to go. Now, ones to watch over the course of this race, of course, the elephant in the room, the front row, but keep a close eye on that 2nd row as well. You've got 4 drivers worth keeping a close eye on there at the first 4 positions of the field. Now, also to keep an eye on as well, Jaden Johnson, who's had a real hot streak with Bentley at the start of the season. I have no doubts in my mind he can clear a line through the field once more. So to keep an eye on there, Robert Ogun, he's had a very interesting week in a few different series. So today, very likely to be on that same line of logic. He's a real survivor on this grid. In our recent visit then to Indianapolis with the folks over at VSR, he was able to carve a line through the field. We'll see if he can do so again in the very same 96 Aston Martin. Well then, 30-second warning. We're on boards with the number 13, Nick Alexander, set to take us away then here for the formation lap, season 4, round 3 of the MSC ACC GT3 series live on TRTN. We're watching on board then with that number 13. And with this, we get an opportunity to get a closer look down through turn 1. And this is really going to be an area that a lot of these drivers are taking the time now to make some solid recce of, unless they already got that detail down through over the course of free practice and qualifying. They get a much more slow and intimate view of the track. They can understand every intricacy that exists therein down at turn 1. Now, we saw a few weeks to actually a few months ago now, back in the GT4 Pro-Am Cups visit here to the Hungaroring a few seasons ago with the folks at Competizione Performance League, that turn 1 can be killer on cars that are a little bit on the top heavier side. So keep an eye on the Bentley. It's a bit of a larger car there on this grid. Now the GT3s are unlikely to follow through on that same kind of pitfalls there. If you get too friendly with that inside line, it can actually kick the car up off of 2 wheels. You see down through turn 1, so it's sharp on entry and then loose on exit. And of course, that's going to create a very sharp line there, an almost V-shaped line through that section. And that's going to be the same story here down through turn 2, because the drivers want to carry as much momentum as they can to hook round to the left, then round all the way to the right here to clip the apex down at turn 3. And so entering another section of the track to keep very close in mind here on the run out through turn 5. Now, of course, this, I would say, starts more back at turn 4, that blind uphill left-hander. If you get out wide there, of course, it's concrete on the exit, but it is very slippery. Not a lot of available grip in that section, especially if it's been a colder race. This doesn't seem to be that case, though. Down through turn 6 and 7, now down to turn 8. We've seen plenty of drivers get handsy in this section because there are so many ways that you can get out of that section with a varying number of different speeds. We've seen plenty of drivers catch each other up a little too quickly in this section of the track, and it has led to a multitude of issues in the past. We'll see whether or not that's going to be the case, though, between that leading pair, moreover, with the rest of that top 5, as things are looking super, super competitive here, especially as it would stand in for Ferrari. And it's worth pointing out then as well, McLaren, because in spite of being the heaviest in class here for this grid, and having a look back to the BOP with 21 kilos of additional ballast on board to Ferrari's 16 kilos, that still not stops them from producing a remarkably competitive time, courtesy of Owen Camus. Oh, that does appear to be some trouble on the grid here, just on the build-up in towards the race start. You will have to sort of hold our tongues here, and if we are really going green and racing, we see Donnie Linton super late into the session. Will start 25th as it stands. So you see, though, a very laggy grid here on the run down through to turn 14 here at the Hungaroring. This is sort of one of those moments where you kind of got to grit your teeth and bear it. Oh, that looks like trouble up at the front. We're seeing a lot of cars having disconnect troubles. We see there the race leader has disconnected, so that's kicked the doors open for Owen Camus on what is, I must say, one of the most bizarre starts of the season here. For round 3 of MSC. We're down to the line, and 3 cars pick up a drive-through penalty for position on start. Among them was Jaden Johnson. We're green and racing here in what has been a very bizarre turn of events here at the Hungaroring. Owen Camus stands alone at the front of the field. From behind him, Jaden Johnson attacks on Rudolph's Laniex at turn 1 to make second, but bear in mind, he has a drive-through penalty. What has been definitely a bizarre start. We see the tally of it, with plenty of drivers who would have otherwise taken up prime time positions on this field find themselves in the pit lane after a disconnect that was totally out of their hands. As it stands, though, for the number 1, leading this charge, then Owen Camus ahead of Jaden Johnson. We see the number 86 caught out there as well, as the menus continue to struggle updating. But as we see it, then Camus leads up and ahead of what is now the 112. Laniex back up to second. As for the 108, drops back to third. Leroy Donald right behind him in 4th place as things stand right now here in the Hungaroring. But bear in mind, for Johnson, he's one of 3 cars to have picked up a drive-through penalty, the other being Scaparo and Dexter. As we see here in the middle sector, Leroy Donald sizing his chances on the inside. It's contact between the Bentley and the 14. Off goes Leroy Donald down at turns 9 and 10. Out through turn 11. Now falls in behind that of Lewis McKenzie. Back up to the top 5 goes the number 44. He'll be soon up to 4th place when Johnson takes his drive-through penalty. We see in the background things getting handsy with the Aston Martins of Timo Fire and Robert Ogan. Both of them looking to take a chunk out of Grady and Zuzi. We see as well Sean O'Grady had a lightning start, now up to 12th in this race, having started from the back row. Now, of course, there's definitely the part to be played here of several disconnects on the starting grid. We see the 2 Astons, though, side by side. Fire versus Ogan. Battle of the vantages here down towards turn 1. Having a glance up the order, we see Picorni under siege here from McKenzie. Lewis McKenzie leaps up to 3rd place at turn 1. We see tucked in right behind it is a scrap of the Ferraris down towards turn 3. Leroy Donald looking for a chance here at turn 2. Behind them, Jonathan Barrett and Bartek Kowalik. The 108 now, having served his drive-through, leaves the pit lane. having dropped a considerable length down the order. So getting a look in with some of these fights on the grid now. Of course, there is still the fight between the two Astons. That's since having cleared up, as we see trouble here. Timo Fire having dropped all the way down now behind Alan O'Brien to 13th place with Aston Martin. Having a look in, though, with the Ferrari as it stands. Either of the three Ferraris really take a pick here. This is Milan Piconi we're on board with here in the 29. Let's get a glance in behind, though, to Leroy Donald's point of view. As we see here, the fight of 4th place starts to pick up into full swing. On board here with the 14. Oh, my word, trouble there for Leroy Donald. Get a look at that on the replays as we head down through to turn 12. So having a glance as to what happened here on the exit of turn 11, as we make our way up towards the inside. Oh yeah, it's just got a little bit out of shape, and that little touch on the curb is what helped pivot the car around in that moment. We see, though, for Leroy Donald, he now drops in behind Bartek Kowalik. Milan Piconi now tucks in behind. We have just been advised there is a rerun coming with shortened qualifying. Okay, I mean, we'll have to hold short on that, I imagine. We'll wait for the server to reset as it would stand, but if this happens again, then I'm really not sure what's going to be happening over the course of this race. If you're watching on YouTube, this whole area will not be... well, if you're watching this on YouTube, this whole area is not going to be here. If you're watching on Twitch, this whole area won't be in the YouTube release. It's been already somewhat of a questionable evening so far. Troubles in free practice, now troubles in the race. Really doesn't seem like the servers are too keen at this series right now. Well, having a look then, just before we cut away to a shortened qualifying session. And we'll have to repeat this point ad nauseum over the course of quali today. We are short to get back into qualifying, so it would appear. You see here Bartek Kowalik versus Leroy Donald. Leroy Donald. I was thinking of Levi Warner for a second there. One of the Fats GT drivers whom we covered last week in this week, sorry, in Misano. Leroy Donald versus Bartek Kowalik. Behind him is Gradian Zuzi, and then Robert Ogan there down by 3 seconds, and there you have it. We are now in red flag conditions. So we'll be back to you shortly on a shortened qualifying session for this rerun of round 3. Any further updates we'll relay over the course of this broadcast. Do bear with. Well, you join us back into what is now a shortened qualifying session as we bring the timing charts up just in a moment's time here. We have about 9 minutes of qualifying left to go in this new qualifying session. We're on board with Sam Brogman in the number 55. Now, to give you some context, if you're watching this on the YouTube release of this live stream, what ended up happening was over the course of the race on the formation grid for the original running of today's round, the drivers... and en masse, I should point out as well, disconnected, so we were forced into a rerun, which is what we're in the midst of at the moment. It's not going to make a whole deal of sense if you're watching it now on YouTube, but it's it will all make sense in due course. To give some context, then we've been forced to rerun qualifying. It's on a shortened session, and then we're going back into 60 minutes of racing, hopefully on the grounds that that also works. But really, with how these servers have been behaving, I wouldn't get so hopeful. Wouldn't get so hopeful. On board then with Sam Brockman. The number 55 becomes the new driver to start this qualifying session. We've been given an update as well. If this happens again, the race won't continue. So on the grounds that you're still seeing this on YouTube, it means the race did happen. So you do have that to look forward to. If not, you're never going to see this again. It's simply put. So on board with Brockman as we start the new WOD of flying laps in a much shorter, almost sprint qualifying format to make up for the troubles with server issues over the course of today's event. Now, having a look back into those qualifying predictions, it's much of the same logic we applied in the last running of quali. Nick Alexander produced a time good enough for pole position in that session. He's also predicted on pole again here. Owen Camus second, Piconi third, Mackenzie fourth, Johnson fifth, Kovalik sixth, and Zuzi seventh, Fire eighth, Barrett ninth, and Ambrose predicted in 10th. So 7 minutes left to go. Brockman's our first lapping driver as things stand here in the Hungaroring. We do see as well there was a yellow flag out for Lewis Mackenzie down at turns 9 and 10 on track at the moment. We see though with Brockman down through turn 14 on his way to the line. He'll be the first driver onto the charts here for this sprint qualifying. Down to the line we go then with the 55. From behind him is the 108 Bentley, having just started, I believe, their first flying lap. That's Jaden Johnson from behind there with the Bentley. Nearest to the line, the number 35. So Sam Brockman 1:46.190. Our benchmark time here. Nearest to the line out of turn 13 is Bartek Kovalik. And behind him, the number 1 of Owen Camus. Down to the line then goes Kovalik. Now second in the session. Across the line then goes Camus to fastest. From behind is looking at it here, Piconi to second place, and Zuzi from behind doesn't yet put a time on the charts as we see the time start to roll in thick and fast here. Now second fastest goes Rudolph's Laney X. Among the fray to the line there, number 67, Timo Fire, now to 6th. Number 10 nearby to the line, so this has actually served as somewhat of a Hail Mary solution here for Donnie Linton. This driver missed out on the first qualifying session, joined in just for the race start, was slated to start from the pit lane. He actually gets his opportunity to qualify on track. He's in the top 5 there in the number 10. Now we see new fastest time by Leroy Donald, the number 14 fastest with a 1:44.580. Then the number 4 coming to the line. So across the line a moment ago went Sean McNally. From behind him was Sean O'Grady. The 2:47 in the background as well. Ben Dexter now 10th fastest. Number 86 Sebastian Scaparo, and number 50 Marcelino Fernandez Pedra to the line. Neither of them having yet put a time in there, so a confusing state of affairs. Nearest to the line then is the Bentley of Jaden Johnson. Down to the line goes Johnson. Also no time on the charts there. 55 across the line a moment ago to start another one. That's Sam Brockman, still in the top 5. So nearby is the 35 and the 1. That's Kovalik and Camus as things stand. Owen Camus only 800ths away from Leroy Donald. 4 minutes left to go then in this session. Across the line then goes both of them. Camus up to fastest. Then Piconi to the line. Can he make third ahead of Laney X? Yes, he can. Across the line a moment ago. And Zuzi still no time set there in the number 1:44. The 777 coming to the line. Here comes Morrissey. From behind him is Mackenzie. 777 now to 12th, Mackenzie to 7th in the slipstream then. And in the background, that's Wesley Ambrose. in the 332 Bentley. Number 10 across the line a moment ago. Still in that top 5 then, Donnie Linton. 3.5 minutes left to go. Number 13 to the line. That was for Nick Alexander. It's a better late than never situation here for him to put times on the charts, but he has far less time than he had in the last qualifying to make that mark back up over either Donald or Camus. Number 4, Sean McNally, leaps from 9th to 5th in that last lap just gone. The Mercedes now breaks a line there in between the two Mustangs of Lanier and Linton. Number 247 and number 43 across the line. O'Grady now 13th. And that's now 14th place with the introduction of the 86 of Sebastian Scaparo for Porsche. And then Marcelino Fernandez Pedra for McLaren. Number 108 to the line. And for Jaden Johnson, that's 4th fastest. 1.550 off the fastest time. Breaks the line in up and ahead of Laney X by, as it stands, there's 700ths of a second between the 112 and the 108. Number 66 across the line a moment ago. Nearby to the line, though. We'll catch back on board here. 144.230 to beat by himself. That's Owen Camus at the lead of this quali session. 2 minutes left to go across the line. And makes a 143.770. The 35 and the 29 across the line from behind him. Picconi stays in 3rd place. 144, Grady and Zuzi. Still no time set for Ferrari. Number 44 and number 777. That'll be Morrissey and McKenzie. McKenzie now 4th fastest in this session. We still wait to see the arrival then of the number 13 of Nick Alexander. We just see him here on the exit of turn 14. What can he do then in and amongst that top 5? He's 2nd fastest by 210 thousandths of a second, just over 2 tenths, and 6 tenths clear of Leroy Donald in 3rd place. Number 14 across the line there. And that line gets drawn in just ever closer now for Donald, as he's now just 662 thousandths from the fastest time. Presently, that places him about 452 thousandths away from Alexander in 2nd, but it's Ferrari from 2nd through to 5th. 4 of the top 5 positions comprised by the Ferrari 296. .108 nearest the line. Jaden Johnson from 7th stays 7th. You can see the gap between himself and McNally stands at only 8 thousandths of a second for the control of the last of those 3rd row positions. 6th place up for grabs between Mercedes and Bentley. Number 66 across the line a moment ago once again. That was for having a glance here. That was for Alan O'Brien, 18th in the session. Number 1 nearby. Can he extend over a 143.770? Not on this lap, he can't, but he's on to his last flyer. Number 35 to the line. That was for Bartek Kowalik into the top 10 for BMW. 144 across the line, so better late than never here. Grady and Zuzi now to 10th in this session and only shy of Kowalik by 5 thousandths. 777 to the line. Morrissey stays 18th. We're at the end of qualifying here, so plenty of drivers now wrapping up on operations here. Linton across the line stays outside of that top 10. O'Brien, that being Daniel O'Brien 13th, Jonathan Barrett 14th. Nick Alexander rounds things out by a hair's width off of pole position. 700ths between the leading duo of Owen Camus and Nick Alexander. It gives some context as well on the original release of this in that qualifying session before we were forced to reset to a short quali format. It was Alexander ahead of Camus. So 2nd time's the charm here for Owen Camus to make pole position here at the Hungaroring. Number 55 nearest to the line. That's new driver on the block, Sam Brockman. Looking closer at a chance of a top 10 start here. He's 12th in the session on the back of the 6th row. Across the line he goes and stays there at the end of this session. 112 nearest. Here comes Rudolf Lanier behind him. Sebastian Scaparo. Lanier to the top 5 and Scaparo to 18th. Number 66 nearby to the line, so that'll be for Alan O'Brien, currently 20th in the session. The number 1 nearby to the line as well. O'Brien now to 13th place. Owen Camus making his way to the line. 143.770 to beat across the line, stays at exactly that time. Number 29 nearby. Here comes Milan Picconi. Can he make 3rd ahead of Leroy Donald? Not this time around. Well, at the end of this qualifying session, a very bizarre turn of events then. Short quali producing, albeit far different results than our previous running. Some of the closest gaps we see there, it was 8 thousandths between McNally and Johnson, 5 thousandths between Kovalik and Nzuzi, and we also get to see there the scope of some 27 thousandths in between Laniax and Mackenzie at the end of this session. Of course, elephant in the room, 7 hundredths of a second between Nick, Alexander and Owen Camu at the front of that field. We'll get a full look at the grid in a moment's time, and all of the timings, it's not going to be super accurate, but getting a look here as to what we're on to, all you really need to do is pay attention to what comes up after qualifying and not the times on them either, because that's Greenwich Mean Time. We're now in British summertime. All of this has been a little bit foobar today, but we've got a 5-minute break roughly coming up, and then after that is an hour of racing, hopefully with a mandatory pit stop for fuel. Now, server stability has been on a bit of the flip side here, albeit as we see coming back into what is not qualifying. Now we're very much at the end of that. Just under 5 minutes left to go. Owen Camu on pole position here in the Hungaroring. Nick Alexander in second with Leroy Donald in third. Milan Picconi in fourth. Rudolph Laniax in fifth. And Lewis Mackenzie in sixth. Sean McNally in seventh with Jaden Johnson in eighth. Bartek Kovalik in ninth. And Grady and Zuzi rounds out the top 10. Donnie Linton in 11th place ahead of Sam Brookman in 12th with Alan and Daniel O'Brien 13th and 14th place. Then behind them in 15th, Jonathan Barrett ahead of Ben Dexter in 16th. Timo Fire in 17th with Wesley Ambrose 18th. Sebastian Scaparo in 19th. And Lewis Morris, Liam Morrissey rounds out the top 20. Sean O'Grady in 21st. Marcelino Fernandez Pedra in 22nd. With Lee Evans 23rd and Robert Ogan plumb last of this grid, 24th for the Aston, a far cry of what his first qualifying looked like earlier on today. So we'll leave you on board with Owen Camu. We'll be back to you in just a moment's time, about 3 minutes 40 before the start of the formation lap here in the Hungaroring. So you join us back on board here with the front of the field for the start of round 3 after some delays. We wait here, about a minute left to go. Now, of course, keeping in line with the last grid that we discussed, having a look at the ones to watch here again is that top four of Camus, Alexander, Donald and Picorni, keeping a close eye as well for Johnson and Laniax as part of that fray. I'd also keep a close eye here on Sean McNally as among that fray, now having a much more confident position on that field, still within the top 10 of course, but without the presence of some of the other drivers that we were keeping an eye out for, like Evans and Ogun. It's a case where now he's got a chance to shine by his lonesome in that top 10. We'll come to see though exactly how all of that pans out if this race is to hopefully go ahead. We do see what looks to be a spot of trouble for Leroy Donald. We see there, having a glance at that indicator there, the little orange one next to everyone's racing number indicates the amount of pit stops left to take. Now of course this is a single stop race, it's only one mandatory pit stop over the course of today's event regulations, with an hour of racing set to follow here at the Hungaroring. Yet that one shows up green, meaning that connection troubles have already caused a bit of a fuss there for that of Leroy Donald. Pulling away though goes Owen Camus. Sean O'Grady starts from the pit lane, number 43 McLaren, now in his pit box for the race start. Down through then to turn one. Getting a look back through turn one once again. This is where we get a decent opportunity to check everything out. It's a parabolic open hairpin right, so it starts much sharper on entry, then opens out to give us a sort of shallower gradient of things on the run out through turn one, on the run in towards turn two. And so that's what's going to create down here in sector one, those V-shaped lines that we've been seeing at a lot of these hairpins over the course of the flying laps today. Now, areas on the track to watch out for, of course, turn one and turn two. But now on this run here, from the exit of turn five, we've seen a rare number of drivers manage to get better exits here to give themselves a fighting chance to go side by side up through to turn six. Now, this is albeit very rare, but when we do get moves down through here, it is often very, very sudden and very explosive in its consequence. More often than not, this area of the track has led to a multitude of racing incidents in the past, with drivers getting handsy with one another for control of position on track. So this is a very exciting area of the track to watch for the possibility of some side-by-side action, and that could very quickly, as we've seen in the past, go sour. Now on the exit of turn 10 in towards turn 11, this run out from turn 11 into turn 12 is again another sort of prelude spot here for an overtaking opportunity. We saw in the original running of this race, before we were forced into a restart, was a move lodged at the inside, ultimately didn't end up succeeding for that of Leroy Donald, now starting on the second row. And we do see as well, joining alongside him now is Milan Picorni. You see the formation process beginning here down at turn 13. Now this is where things got a little fuzzy for the server not too long ago. Fingers crossed though that third time's the charm on making sure that the server can hold together. G-Portal's not been particularly the kindest on this series so far, hence why Silverstone is now lodged in at the back of the season. But now we get to see, hopefully, the official running here of round 3 of season 4 of the MSC ACC GT3 series, live exclusively on TRTN. Down towards the line we go then. Without further ado, 24 cars in all, 23 of which are on track, one from the pit lane here at the home of the Hungarian Grand Prix. Without further ado then, folks, we're green and racing here in Hungary. A great start then from that front row. Camus blasts away there with Alexander right up and alongside him. Down towards turn 1. The Ferrari has to tuck in behind for the run in towards turn 1. We see further down the line, that's 2 abreast there. Nearly 3 abreast on the second row between the squabbling pair that was Donald and Laniax. We see here from the point of view of Lewis McKenzie in the 44, down through to turn 2. We see up in front there the leading duo. Then we see Donald slot into third place right now as things stand. Then it's been a howler of a start for Milan Piconi, having dropped dramatically down the order. We see here from Sam Brockman's point of view, I should say, on the exit of turn 3. He's up and alongside Sean McNally up in towards turn 4. The Mercedes runs things around the outside there to possibly make a move up in towards turn 5. Can't find any ground of it, so falls in behind Brockman and onto the nose there of O'Brien and Nzuzi. So getting a glance at the grid so far in this race then. Oh, it's trouble up front. And Owen Camus and Nick Alexander drop down through the field. Now leading this charge, Leroy Donald in 3rd place. Oh, well, was 3rd place, now 1st place. Rudolph Zlanieks now up to 2nd. Lewis McKenzie now onto the podium in 3rd. Donnie Linton up to 4th place. Right behind him there, Jaden Johnson. Oh, never mind. These two are still 6th and 7th, but you can see up in front there, that's Camus and Alexander having dropped now the scope of some 3 positions because of their incident down at turn 6 and turn 7. The opening 2 minutes of racing then has already produced quite a fling there between the 1 and the 13. Trouble almost immediately then for Camus v Alexander. The 2 championship rivals, after 2 official rounds of this championship so far, find themselves still eerily close to one another, led on a joint position out of round 1 into round 2 at Zolder. Coming into today, it's Camus leading that charge over Alexander, but the 2 are still very, very close to one another in the standings. So this represents a very early fracture point in their rivalry here at only round 3 of the championship. McKenzie then makes 3rd place, we see in the moment. Laniak 2nd, Donald in the lead. Looking in behind, very close battle coming up here for 6th place. Donnie Linton versus Jaden Johnson. Behind the Milan Piconi, who started on that 2nd row, is now down to the 4th row of this grid with a less than ideal start there in the number 29. Bartek Kowalik in 9th place. And we see Sem Brockman in 10th. Grady and Zuzi in 11th. Sean McNally in 12th. Right behind him are the 2 O'Briens, Alan and Daniel O'Brien. Number 66 and number 88. Hounding that Mercedes for control of 12th place on the run down through turn 6 and 7. Having a glance back in here for Camus v Alexander. These 2 about 3/10 of a second apart from one another. That's not even the closest gap on track right now. That stands right as it appears here between Evans and Scaparo. Now Barrett and Scaparo, as we see a move there for Evans up and ahead now of the Porsche for 16th place out through turns 9 and 10. We see now here with Jonathan Barrett sizing his chances to go up and around the outside at turn 12. It's a risky maneuver, but it will give him the inside down at turn 13. He just can't find any room of it. That's not going to stop him from poking his nose to the inside, trying to force some defensive moves there out of the Porsche. He's to the inside at turn 14 with Barrett in the McLaren on the outside, now looking to go back onto the racing line. More aggressive exit planned then for a move possibly as early as turn 1. Getting a look then after the first couple of laps of racing. Leroy Donald leads here in the Hungaroring. Rudolf Slanieks in 2nd with Lewis McKenzie in 3rd. Swiftly approaching though the brazen duo at the front, formerly at the front of the field. Now in 4th and 5th, Owen Camus and Nick Alexander making their way back up through the podium. Behind them is the fight just outside of the top 5, Johnson v Linton. The 2 heavyweight cars there. Ironic given the fact that both of them are actually losing weight for this race, but they're 2 of the largest vehicles by size on this grid. The Mustang and the Bentley head to head. A full naval battle then queued up for 6th place. You see in the background here, getting far closer now to Nzuzi is that of Sean McNally. Out through turn 5, glued to the back end of the Ferrari. Has a bit of a wobble there at turn 5. Into turn 6 we go. With both of the O'Briens behind him, he's got a lot of pressure mounting over his rear from the 2 McLarens in 13th and 14th place. For McNally, there is the chance he sees right in front of him there with the 2 Ferraris of Piconi and Nzuzi to break a line into the top 10 as early as the first 10 minutes. We see here, back on board with Camus, now versus McKenzie for 3rd place. We'll go to catch on board as and when we can here. We'll go on board, as a matter of fact, with Nick Alexander. This is going to be a more curious angle to follow. The one right at the back of this 3-car, soon-to-be 4-car train. You can see just up in front there is Rudolf Slanieks in 2nd place. We watch here with Alexander from his point of view of what is an aggregate fight here for 3rd place. Locally, he's fighting for fourth up against Owen Camu, but you can see the difference in straight line speed between Ferrari and McLaren here on the opening. Straight down towards turn one. Camu looks at the inside over McKenzie. Now, if anything goes wrong here, it's going to be the case that Alexander will be the first to know about it, but he himself runs out wide at turn one. So it's still side-by-side action here. McKenzie jostles for position with Camu. The two make contact momentarily on the run down towards turn two. You can see that Alexander is just picking away, trying to find a gap here where one may exist, but he has ended up tripping over himself once again at turn two. Out through turn three we go. And this is getting razor thin between these three now for control of the last of those podium positions. We see here from Nick Alexander momentarily had a glance at the inside, backed out of it on better intuition on the exit of turn 5. Heading up through to turn 6 and 7. The same area where he and Camu ran into their first incident. Down through turn 6. Camu tried to go on one side there of McKenzie on the exit of turn 7. Now to turn 8. McKenzie running wide there. Turn 9, it's through goes Alexander. There's a huge bit of contact between the pair from now behind him. Get a look at this on the replays. Out through turn 9. Having a glance here, actually this is, yes, out through turn 9. We see, looking up the inside, Owen Camu, but then he starts to run out wide off the line. And with the car in front of him, that being McKenzie, having to rejoin the track, he had nowhere to go but right onto the nose there of the number 1. Through goes Nick Alexander into third place. So very sudden action on this field. We see next in his line of sight will be Rudolf Zlanieks, the Latvian talent, currently second on the field as it stands 4 tenths slower than Leroy Donald at the front of the field there, with Ferrari leading by 1.6 seconds. Seeing here with the trailing end of that fight, what has now been upgraded to 4th place is Donnie Linton and Jaden Johnson, now both in the top 5 in the heavyweight Ford and Bentley. Having a glance then at the rest of the field, we see Owen Camu is into the pit lane now. Very early pit stop. We see as well here Wesley Ambrose versus Lee Evans in their current fight for 14th place. That's now, as things stand, by soon proxy to be 13th. We see up in front of them there Wesley Ambrose. Evans versus, by looking at it here, that's Daniel O'Brien, not Wesley Ambrose he's fighting with. We see, though, big step out there for the 444. He's done very, very well to catch here on the exit of turn 3. But Evans now drops it behind Daniel O'Brien, who sets his sights up and upon Wesley Ambrose in the Bentley in front. Alan O'Brien's got his hands full at the moment with Sean McNally in front for 11th place. Up in front of them, we see a whole skirmish of cars here. Sam Brockman, Milan Picconi and Grady and Zuzi, 3 Ferraris all contending for command of 8th place. Brockman leading that charge. It is worth pointing out here for Brockman, this is his first ever race in this season. So it's a real baptism by fire for this one as he makes his way to 8th for the moment. Not far off a stab here of 7th. We see up in front is Bartek Kowalik. Up in front of him is McKenzie. It's worth pointing out here, progress on that fight inside the top 5. Johnson is closing on Linton. We see here on the exit of turn 13, that's the better of 2 lines, but it'll be to the outside at turn 14. So he has to play his cards very close to the chest here for a good exit out of turn 14 to slingshot his way up past that Mustang. That is no easy feat considering the challenge he's up against. Out of turn 14, on to lap 5 we go. 10 minutes into this race and already plenty of action to discuss. Backing out of it there, Jaden Johnson stays 5th. We see Grady and Zuzi looking on the inside of Milan Picconi. This could end in tears. Down through turn 1, the 144 holds his ground. Will be to the outside at turn 2. Picconi holds the inside then. Out through turn 2, now to turn 3. Retakes position, stays up ahead of Nzuzi for 9th. Looking here, the fight for 4th place, Linton versus Johnson. McKenzie in their sights, but a drive-through penalty for the number 44. So on the other half of that incident at turn 9, we saw already the number 1 was into the pits very early on. Now we see coming into the pits not far from now will be the number 44 of Lewis McKenzie with Ferrari. Having survived his incident there with Owen Camu, it's only gotten worse for him since. 10 minutes into this race, now a drive-through. Looking at some close-by fights here, it's the battle of the O'Briens. The 2 McLarens going head-to-head here, and this converges on 2 separate fights we covered earlier on of O'Brien v Evans and O'Brien v Ambrose. Previously was, I believe, O'Brien v McNally. We see, though, for Sean McNally, he's made light work of the rest of this grid at the moment. Now up to 11th place. He sees right in front of him the gateway to 10th, courtesy of the 144 as he sizes his way to the inside on Milan Picorni. Can't find any space for it. And hats off to Sam Brockman. He's been able to hold up against the pressure here of having these two drivers claw at position for him over the course of these last couple of laps, and for his efforts he's rewarded with 7th there because of Mackenzie's drive-through penalty. He's now shifted up to 7th place. In front of him is Bartek Kowalik, who now moves to 6th. Getting a look in here, Lee Evans is not yet finished with the O'Briens. He's already up and ahead of Daniel O'Brien. Now sizes up Alan O'Brien on the run down through to turn 2. Is it going to be 2 in a row here? Yes, it is. Down through to turn 2. Lee Evans, albeit with a very V-shaped line there, runs a little bit wide of the apex, but then snaps things back in for a run down through turn 3. The Mercedes is on the warpath here, now up to 13th. Down through turn 6 and 7, we see now, ever since the drive-through for Mackenzie, a lot more of the cars around him have started to tiptoe their way down through that middle sector. That's where, of course, the 44 picked up on his troubles not too long ago. Looking here, the battle of the O'Briens. Alan O'Brien leading over Daniel. Number 66 and number 88 running out wide at turn 11, so Daniel O'Brien's got a chance here to go up on the inside of the number 66 in front, backs out of it, down through turn 12. We'll catch on with these two in due course. We see sizing his way to the inside here at turn 13, super close to one another there, just before the apex. That fans back out between the pair on the run to turn 14. We see here side-by-side action for Brockman v Picorni. A bit of a rub there of the wheels down the opening straight. We see Brockman's got a little bit more on the top end, but on the inside line is Milan Picorni. Looking his way up the inside, Grady and Zuzi follows through as well. Says, I'll have that position off you. Thank you very much. And that's 2 positions out then in one straightaway for Brockman, who now drops in behind Picorni and Nzuzi. Bear in mind, all 3 of these drivers clashing heads for position is only inviting in Sean McNally, who has now since moved in to the top 10. Wesley Ambrose now meets the indiscriminate wrath of that 4-4-4 behind him. That's Lee Evans. Now, worth pointing out here, Nick Alexander hunting down Rudolph's Laniacs. Now, about 1.1 seconds in closing, we see just how quickly that's progressed in the time since. So going on board here with Laniacs in the defending half of this battle for second place. Out through turn 10, now to turn 11. Down through to turn 12 we go then. Laniacs still holds his ground. You can see understeer creeping in on that Mustang. That Ferrari is just chipping away at him in the middle and final sector. Down through turn 13. Looking on board with the 112, you can see just how present the Ferrari is in his rear view mirror at all times then. Very little breathing space between the pair. It's super close here at turn 14. Looking to the inside is Alexander, but on the straightaways, this is where things can really become quite troublesome, because that Ford has got still, even in spite of 20% worth of a restrictor, so much more to give than the Ferrari 296 in the opening straight. But down towards turn 1, leaping for the inside goes Alexander. Laniacs could be set up here for the mother of all switchbacks, and he's already committed to it. Hammer down on the run to turn 2. Can he turn this one back into second place? Down in the turn 2 we go then. Holding the inside is Alexander. Again, open for a possible switchback, but this time around, it's the Ferrari that prevails. As we enter turn 3, Nick Alexander's up to second for the time being. Rudolf Laniak still close at hand here from third. Down to turn 4. You see both of the cars, they're catching the curb quite violently. In the case of the Mustang, I'm pretty sure we heard it get up off of all 4 wheels as the revs spiked on the exit of turn 4 and through turn 5 now to turn 6 and 7. We see here with these two what has been thus far a brilliant fight between Alexander and Laniacs now prevails in favor of the Ferrari. Sean O'Grady in the meantime in the number 43 has a drive-through penalty, that which he has now just come into the pits to serve as it stands here. We see with Jaden Johnson Still sizing up a move here for Donnie Linton, but he's 1.5 seconds clear away now from the Mustang. So the chances for these two to get side by side in the near future is starting to slim. As for the three Ferraris, these three were inseparable to a point in this race, but now, since Picconi's advance ahead of Brookman, he's now opened the lineup over Nzuzi by just over a second. It's now this fight that goes on behind between the two Mercs and the Bentley of McNally, Ambrose and Evans that takes center stage here just from in and then out of the top 10, with McNally representing the last of those top 10 spots. For Ambrose, he's really caught in somewhat of a pincer here between the two Mercs. The number 4 up in front of him has got him on the straights here. The Bentley needs a much longer straightaway to get some advantage here over the Mercedes cars. What the Bentley does have, though, by the bucketful over the Mercs, is torque. It's a turbo, or twin turbo, I should say, 4-litre V8 engine, as opposed to the Mercedes' 6.3-litre naturally aspirated unit. Means that on the uphill sections, things are going to be a little bit more lenient for the Bentley, but we only really have one of those to speak of, and that's on the exit of turn 3 into turn 4. And the downhill sections here, momentum's already on your side. Gravity's feeding a lot of that through to these cars. Down out of turn 4, Ambrose stays 11th, but has still got sizable ground here to gain before he's within a shot of 10th place again. Out through turn 4 we go. You see they're running very wide on exit there, trying to get as much momentum necessary for the run up through turn 5 is Lee Evans in the 444. Now cutting back in behind here to see another fight going on. This is Jonathan Barrett versus Robert Ogan. These two very close to one another. Of course, we still have the battle of the O'Briens to talk of. Daniel O'Brien, looking at it there, it says 0.6 of a second. That's definitely not the case looking at the gap between these two now on the exit of turn 9 and 10. Up through turn 10. Behind as well is Barrett v Ogan. You see here Ambrose v Evans. So plenty of fighting just outside of the top 10. As far as things go inside the top 10, it's a rather tepid affair when you consider the closest fight right now appears to be one in progress and building up towards something between Kovalik and Picconi. We also have here Lewis McKenzie versus Timo Fire. This is for 17th on the grid. Fire trying to hold his ground here through turn 14. That could leave the door open for McKenzie on the exit of turn 14. The Aston Martin already covering the inside, so McKenzie's going to have to run things the long way around town for a move up towards 17th place, up over the 67. Timo Fire's going to try and hold his ground, goes onto the brakes earlier. So McKenzie benefits there from being a little bit more daring down into turn 1. Holds on now to what is 17th place. Looking back on board with some of the other fights in the field, just to get a quick update here on the progress by Picconi against Kovalik. Nothing as of yet. The number 50, I believe, was just out of this race, and that was Marcelino Fernandez-Pedra out of the charge of this race now. Most recent DNF on today's grid. Looking back in here with Ambrose, McNally and Evans, we see now it's the Bentley that's got up and ahead of the duo of Mercedes cars. Trouble for McNally as he now drops in behind Evans to 12th. With front end damage, so it appears, the door is still open for an arrival here by the two O'Briens behind him, Alan and Daniel O'Brien, the 66 and the 88. Those two close to each other, but getting closer to this three-pack of cars in front, representing the last of those positions before the top 10. In the background, we see Ogan up and ahead of Barrett. Barrett looking at a chance of counter-attack here down at turn 12. He's to the outside of the Aston. Can't find any room of it there. Squeezed out before the run of turn 13. And the first of two hairpins here in Sector 3 alone. You see all three of those fights going on at the moment. No action down through turn one, a little too far away to properly gauge it at this point. Now, some of the closest fighting we're seeing right now, not only is going on between Ambrose and Evans, but if we glance up the field here to see, it is definitely now in full swing between Picconi and Kovalik for 6th place on the field. Now, there is, again, building back into that fight from inside the top 5. Johnson slowly but surely chipping away at the gap between himself and Donnie Linton down through turn 6 and 7 here in the middle sector. We see behind them the ongoing fight for 6th. And then we see approaching from behind there what's left of the 3 set of Ferraris. And for Sam Brockman, he's about to be approached, as it would stand here, with having to take a bit of an odd line through turn 7. He is being swiftly approached by the onslaught of things at the back of that top 10. Wesley Ambrose and Lee Evans. Now, we'll go and catch on board, as a matter of fact, with... we were originally to try and get on board with Ambrose. So I want to get on board there with that 444, because Evans is really putting pedal to the metal here, and it is looking very, very lively to watch on with that 444. You see in the background as well what's now definitely a defensive fight on the way here for McNally. Now, the load's been made a little bit lighter because Alan O'Brien has just picked up a drive-through penalty. You see in the moment he has no intent upon serving it on the first lap that he's been given it. So we will try and drag this one out just a little bit here over the course of this race. Bear in mind, he's only got about 2 more laps to do so before he receives a sizable penalty for not taking that drive-through penalty. There's something that is quite entertaining about watching on with Evans, is this sort of tenacity in the way that he drives the car. We've seen plenty of times before, whether it's been with Nissan or whether it's been with Mercedes, that he really ends up behaving almost instinctively when he gets into this sort of swing of things for fighting. Once he smells blood in the water, he's on the prowl for more positions, and he's not letting up until he has that. And it often is a case where he'll push that machine way beyond what it can take to achieve that. And it does make for these very almost feral drives. It's some proper old school motorsports we're seeing here from the new school GT3 machinery. He's driving the absolute brakes off of it. We've seen it plenty of times here. He is really overdriving that car, slipping around and almost stepping out under braking. It's a very involved, very visceral style of driving that we don't often get to see in a sport that's often defined, especially here in the esports level, by a much more precise, much more calm driving manner. We get to see every now and again a driver really just grip the wheel and rag it. That does make for some fantastic viewing, and there's still, method to the madness in this, because we've seen over the course of the time we've been watching, not only has he been pushing Ambrose through every single corner for this position, he's getting closer to Ambrose, and by proxy, he's getting closer to Brockman up in front there. We'll catch on with Evans in due course, as there are closer fights up the field. Picconi v Kovalik. We see Donnie Linton has come into the pit lane since. There is also the topic here of the ongoing procession to a leading fight. Now, it went from 1.4 to 1.2 seconds over the course of the last 2 intervals there, so there is sizable evidence to suggest that Nick Alexander has got the momentum to carry here. He's got the fastest lap of the race so far and is now hunting down Leroy Donald for that race lead. But he needs to be careful not to get a little too crazy, as we saw there on the exit of turn 6 and 7. If he gets a little too handsy with the inside line, that's often where we've seen the bulk of our drive-throughs get picked up in this time. Having a glance in here, Picconi v Kovalik. We are still keeping an ear to the ground on any updates there for Ambrose v Evans. We see here with Milan Picconi, who's really been able to get his elbows out here and get stuck into it all at the Hungaroring. Sort of brought the right car for the job here. That Ferrari, it is a rather twitchy number now, albeit not anywhere near as much as their contemporaries at Lamborghini, but the 296 does offer this very zippy, almost go-kart like feeling, and where better then on a track that's been praised for feeling like an oversized go-kart track, would the Ferrari be the vehicle to excel? More on that in a moment. We see here in the background, from looking momentarily in with Sam Brockman, this is the look for Ambrose v Evans. And then getting a look at the front of the field, we see that that gap has now, in the span of about 4 intervals there, been sliced down by half, from 1.4 to 7 tenths. We see pushing that Bentley now out through turn 14. This is as close as it's been so far for Evans v Ambrose. Let's get a gander on board then with the 444 in the current fight then for 9th. Down towards turn 1. Both of them pushing very late onto the brakes. They're in towards turn 1. He's got to look at the inside. Bear in mind though, in the torque of that engine, the Bentley has got more torque down low where it matters there. That twin turbo slingshotting Ambrose out of turn 1. Now down to turn 2. Meanwhile, as this goes on, we are still keeping an eye on how things are going for the leading duo, that being Donald versus Alexander. We see down through to turn 5. All of this pushing now has egged on the 332 to start gaining grounds up over the 55 of Brockman. So having a look here as they enter turn 6 and 7, this is where things will slow down just a pinch as we catch on board with the leading Ferraris of Leroy Donald and Nick Alexander, the 14 versus the 13 as they exit turn 14. And in the last interval, they were a 10th apart from one another, so that really does speak volumes of how quickly, once he's got into the zone of things there, that Alexander has been able to make work up through this field. We see here also just briefly on with Kovalik v Picorni. Back on with the leading pair as they exit turn 1, then back on to Ambrose v Evans as we see very nearly the scope of some side-by-side action. In the background, we see for Sean McNally, who's got his hands full here with an approach from both Robert Ogan and Jonathan Barrett. It's contact, off goes Ogan. A bit of a half spin there for him. But he keeps his footing, albeit now diving to the pit lane, and he will be joining Bartek Kovalik from the pit lane as things stand right now. Those two in on this lap, 33 minutes left to go. Now we size up the bulk of those pit stops are coming up in a roughly the next 2 laps here. When we get on to the dead-on halfway mark of this race is where most drivers on a one-stop strategy will be opting to come in, just split this perfectly down the middle. It's the safest and most efficient option they have. We've seen drivers experiment on either side of it, but it really is a case-by-case basis on whether or not the driver's position on the track plays a role in this, which it often does. And moreover, the kind of track that we're dealing with here, the Hungaroring, has a relatively short pit lane. Now, not the shortest in circulation. I'm pretty sure there are some other tracks among them. I want to say Brands Hatch has definitely got a shorter one here than this. This is a track that I believe we might be... No, I think we already have, yes, visited at the start of the season. All of the rounds, of course, just blend into one, often why our memory gets a bit fuzzy about these things. Nick Alexander still chasing. Getting a glance in, though. Back in with Evans and Ambrose. They're both now in at the top 10. 8th and 9th. We also see into the pit lane goes Rudolph's Laniacs and Sean O'Grady, I believe that is there. Donnie Linton also in the paddock. We see here going into the pit lane goes Wesley Ambrose. So that leaves Lee Evans out by his lonesome to inherit 8th place. Looking on board here, side-by-side action momentarily, but you can see that huge difference in line is going to make a world's difference now on this in-lap for Leroy Donald. The ball's in his court, and now he's brought that gap up from 4 tenths to 1.5 seconds because of that switch. So no time like the present here for Donald. If he comes into the pits now, he'll come into the pits ahead of Alexander. He's got that strategy over him. That's really the case when you see these leading fights. When it comes down to this pit window, you're going to see the majority of the drivers, at least in the leading position, they've got the command of the field. It's a catch-22 for the guy behind, because you can either come in early and hope that your strategy is enough, which we've seen with some drivers isn't always the case, especially when these two have been so evenly matched for pace up until right now. Or is a case where the leading driver comes in, and now if you are in the position of that number 13, you've got to start playing more reactively. You've got to alter your pit strategy to be in direct counterplay to the one in front. So we'll see what happens here. And going into the pits goes Leroy Donald. So Nick Alexander will stay out in the lead of this race now, soon to move up into it. This is definitely going to make for some interesting viewing over the next 30 minutes of racing. Looking in then with some of the other fights. O'Brien versus McNally.
We are at the halfway mark, still a long way to go.
That starts to simmer down quite a fair deal here between these two. About 7/10 of the last interval. We see things start to draw near between the 88 and the 4 on the exit of turn 12 into turn 13. Meanwhile, we also see into the pit lane goes Jaden Johnson and Milan Picconi. So that's 3 of the top 5 there into the paddock. Joining them, Grady and Zuzi. Sam Brookman and Lee Evans elect to stay out. Same story for Daniel O'Brien, but you can see though his tyres certainly not thanking him for it. Sean McNally stays out as well. Laniacs already having come in is going to inherit a few positions of his own. Meanwhile, we do note here, Leroy Donald is already on his leave of the pits. He's already out. He's off the limiter and back out onto the Hungaroring he goes. Brockman v Evans for 6th place as it would stand. Now these two having since bumped up to 3rd because of the stops there by Johnson, Picconi and Nzuzi. So see if we can go and catch back on board with Evans. Now in a new fight here with new driver to the field, the number 55 of Sam Brockman in the Kessel Racing Ferrari. Seeing Presley then, a little bit of argy-bargy there for the fight of 2nd place. Now under strategy, this will be a broadly different scope of the field for them later down the line, but for the time now, in the here and now, that's what they're fighting for. Now we've got information about the number 13. Alexander is into the pit lane here at the Hungaroring, so for these two, they can elect to stay out, but it looks to be likely the case they'll both be coming in. We'll see though exactly what ends up happening here. Often it doesn't go well when you start to teeter out past in these 60-minute races, these sort of, I'd say, 26 to 25-minute mark. That's often when you start no longer seeing a benefit to it. So I think they're going to run this right to the ragged edge. We see there, very sudden difference in line at turn 14. Nonetheless, they will stay out for what is now going to become the battle of 1st place between Brockman and Evans. But they need to, you know, wrap this one up as soon as they can. Any further beyond that 26-minute mark and they're starting to see more detriment than benefit of staying out long. Often that strategy only plays into their hands by about 1 to maybe 2 laps depending on the track. Of course, a lot of that goes out the window when you get to the larger tracks like the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps or the Nürburgring Nordschleife, for example. We see here Alexander now up and ahead of Donald. So he has played this very, very well. And sort of playing on what we were saying there earlier, often your counterplay strategy has to fall within the next 2 laps. Anything longer than that and you're running a serious risk. So for Alexander, he has done very, very well there. But now he's got to consider this part here where Donald has already primed his tyres. He's got a little bit more grip to boot here. As I say, that comes slicing out. Commentator's curse is a very real thing. Do look into it and its effects, ladies and gents. Read a book. As we see here up at the front of the field, Evans and Brockman. Now, I want to give a quick update here to Owen Camus. Of course, was caught up in that incident right at the very start of this race, down at turn 9, between himself and that of Lewis Mackenzie, the 44 Ferrari, of which, he made contact with out of turn 9. We see him now challenging what is, I would say, soon to be a top 5 position, because, of course, with Brockman, Evans and McNally still yet to have come in, we are functionally looking at the fight here for 4th place on this field. So, in spite of everything here, this is not a doomsday scenario for Camus. Now, it's not going to be great for his championship endeavours, but we're still, relatively speaking, early in the season. Now, when you consider where we are right now, of a 6-round championship, we're dead on the halfway mark through. If he loses the lead now by such a thin margin, it's not the end of the world. He's got 3 more rounds to make up for this. And those 3 rounds coming up, Zandvoort, Barcelona, and the rerun of Silverstone, are going to make things a lot more interesting for him, because that is a track where we've already seen, especially in Silverstone's case, we've already seen for Camus, he is very, very quick indeed. Sam Brockman into the pit lane. Now leaves McNally out by his lonesome to take 2nd on. Evans leads this charge. Right behind him there's Donnie Linton in 21st on the field. Now, in spite of the fact that he's a lapped car, that's not going to stop him from driving this race. He is in a race here, not just on a leisurely cruise around the Hungaroring. The number 10 staying very close there to the back of the 444. Looking here, Johnson v Camus. This is for 6th on the field. We see there that leak to the inside. Very enthusiastic charge in by Camus, but he was held off by that 108. Down through turn 5. We now see the McLaren trying it again into turn 6. Oh, it's just a little too eager there. How on earth you're ever going to make that move stick is beyond me. Out of turn 8 we go. You can see it's that bloodlust almost we spoke of when discussing the drive we saw from the 444 of Evans. This is a lot of this is instinctive for Camus at this point. He's charging without really much of a, for, you know, not trying to sound insulting, but a lack of complex thought. For a lot of these drivers, they are operating on instinct. It's a subconscious pattern that they follow. Is there a gap? Can I go for the gap? And that's how you do it. You see out through turn 12, he saw the gap open up for a millisecond and dove for it. It was, I think, mirroring on the same point. I think it was something that Ayrton Senna spoke of in his time, where it was, I think he was speaking about his lap at Monaco. It was a case where you get past a certain point and a lot of it is subconscious. You know, he was almost a passenger in his own cars. A lot of that was instinct. And that's what you get to see in these spur-of-the-moment decisions, when you see these drivers run their luck, like we've seen with Camus over the course of that last lap. This has not rewarded him too greatly. He's got to start bringing some logic into this one, because of all cars to try your luck against, especially for squeezing, you've kind of barked up the wrong tree when picking the Bentley. Because Johnson's got a lot of the mass of the grid over that McLaren. Now, the McLaren, of course, big car. If you've ever been near the 720S, big car, wide car. But that Bentley is a different machine entirely. We've got some curious notes here just passed through by some of the folks at Race Control regarding the Zandvoort weather report. And that's for the next round of the championship, round 4 of season 4. And we are looking at wet weather coming up next round on the next Friday coming here. So for these two, when we see them next, it's going to be far more dicey conditions that could play quite harshly against the leading two manufacturers of Ferrari and McLaren, as we do know that the British manufacturers at Bentley and Aston Martin, unlike McLaren, because they're front engine machines, the McLaren is the odd one out here for British manufacturers. But what we see with the front engine cars is they can really put some serious damage on the grid when wet weather kicks in, especially the Aston Martin. So be keeping an eye there to Timo Fire and Robert Ogen next week, if we are to believe what we're seeing here. It's also worth keeping an eye on those Mercedes cars, as in the right hands, that car can really glide over the wet surface. You see here, McNally v Donald. Now, of course, when you consider strategy as part of the mix here, this isn't much of a fight for the number 14. But, of course, with the number 4 still being physically ahead of him on track and in the standings, he's got to fight this one out. You can't just expect the 4 to roll over. But this has not done him a great service here, knowing that Alexander is up at ahead and still building that gap out past McNally. McNally has no reason to let the 14 on by. If he were to do so, it would be totally out of a sign of courtesy, of which he has, again, no reason to do, because he is physically in second place. It's going to be one that he has to fight for here. The number 14 on the exit of turn 5 sizes a move at turn 6. It's a very sudden leap on the inside, but he holds on to it. McNally gives him the space. And of the rare occasions we get to see that one done right, we see it done right there from Leroy Donald. But he does have a lot of back-end sway there on the Ferrari. There is something direly wrong in the second half of this race. He's really pushed the car out beyond its operational limit. Looking back in with our fight of the British manufacturers here, Bentley versus McLaren for 5th on the grid. That'll soon be 4th when McNally comes into the pit lane. Ferrari looking at a chance of a 1-2 here in the Hungaroring. 20 minutes left to go then. Taking a look at the grid so far before we see the last of our 2 pit stops. Nick Alexander in the lead of this race, up and ahead of Leroy Donald. Sean McNally in 3rd, but still has a pit stop to serve in this race. Rudolf Slanieks in 4th. Jaden Johnson in 5th. Owen Camus in 6th, tucked in behind the 108 Bentley here on our screens. Milan Picorni in 7th. Ben Dexter in 8th, but it's yet to serve his last pit stop. Grady and Susie 9th, Lee Evans in 10th, Robert Ogen in 11th, Sam Brook went in 12th, Wesley Ambrose 13th, Bartek Kowalik in 14th, Daniel O'Brien in 15th, Jonathan Barrett 16th, Lewis McKenzie in 17th, Alan O'Brien in 18th, Timo Fire in 19th, and rounding out the top 20 is Sebastian Scaparo. You see there a bit of a sway from the number 1, trying to find, can I go this way, can I go that way? You can start to see in the body language of the car the thought process playing out here from Owen Camu on his efforts to try and get up and around the Bentley. He's trying absolutely everything. He's throwing the kitchen sink at Jaden Johnson, but he can just dig his heels into the sand here, and that Bentley doesn't really have to do a great deal to keep the McLaren off him for position, because the McLaren is burning itself out here. Of course, with Owen Camu, there's a lot more at stake in this race. He's fallen down through the order. This is his salvage drive that we're looking at the moment. 19.5 minutes left to go. He needs every position he can get to maintain that lead when we head past the halfway mark here at round 3 into round 4 at what is soon to be a wet and wild Zandvoort. Now, we'll catch on with these two just as we see here out through turn 8 in towards turn 9. We'll catch on with them in a moment. We just quickly glance in to see Nzuzi v Evans v Dexter. Now, in the case of the latter of the cars here, Ben Dexter still has that pit stop to serve, so this is primarily a fight between Mercedes and Ferrari, the 144 and the 444. We have a glance here down at turn 12 to see with Owen Camu versus Jaden Johnson. Around the outside goes the number 1, so we'll have the inside at turn 13. That's if he has the space to squeeze for it. That he does, going later onto the brakes into turn 13. The Bentley tucks in behind, so Owen Camu up to 5th as things would stand right now. Out through turn 14, he's fought hard enough for that one. And a lot of that risk starts to pay off for him now. Now up and ahead of the Bentley. The Bentley tucks into his slipstream. You can see how quick he is to try and cut the toe off there. Now holds the inside back onto the racing line. Has tried absolutely everything there to keep the Bentley away from him for the run through turn 1. We'll catch on with these two a little later on. We see here picking back up where we left off for Evans v Nzuzi. This is for 8th on the field. Down to the line we go. Ben Dexter is into the pit lane, so Robert Ogun shifts to 10th place. We see for Evans v Nzuzi. Now, it's a close gap here, sure, but is there going to be the room for him to squeeze for the inside? Not by the looks of it on entry, but on exit, different story. We see him creep up there on that 144. Out through turn 3 we go. Now up towards turn 4. Evans looking for his chances. Looks at the inside. Now, this is risky. I think what he's really trying to do is throw somewhat of a blindsider in on that 144. Try and make him step off of the racing line for a moment, because then he's got premier access to the most optimal line of every corner until he moves back in. Preying on the few tenths of a second that he lapses judgment. Things still razor thin as it would stand. Meanwhile, Camu v Johnson now builds out to a second between the Bentley and the McLaren. We're on board here with Evans and Nzuzi. Staying on board with the AMG, a driver we followed on with for a fair few battles today. And for every reason, he's been a driver that's not been able to keep his hands clean today. Constantly in the thick of it here in the Hungaroring. Never a battle not to be found by the 444. He'll certainly walk away with a grin no matter where he finishes, because it's not been a dull race for this one. Running out wide though at turn 14. That does allow for Nzuzi, if he can keep the hammer down here on the exit of turn 14, to start building a gap. That he can't, because the gap now drops from 4 tenths to 3 as we head on to the opening straight. See with Nzuzi holding the inside line. That brings Evans onto the racing line for the exit of turn 1. But again, those turbocharged engines in the lower gears, they've just got so much more torque over the AMG. It's one Achilles heel, really, outside of its very bizarre setup profile. Now, we've spoke with a few drivers who are frequent pilots of the Mercedes. I think we might have accidentally called it the Bentley earlier on. No, the Mercedes. But it's a case with this car. The two major flaws of this vehicle is the way that it's set up, because a lot of what makes sense on other cars does not make sense, and you almost have to do the logical inverse for the Mercedes. Oh, up in front. That's trouble for, of all drivers, that's Milan Picconi. So that does bring in the scope here of a fight for 7th place. As we see there, a little bit of a rub between Nzuzi and Picconi. Picconi runs out wide at turn 9. Evans still on the rear end there of Nzuzi. They both move up now a position. Now begins the fight of 7th place. Behind them, a wounded number 29. So among the issues for the Mercedes, they noted was its sort of counterintuitive means of setting the car up. and also that elder 6.3 litre engine. Now, that's the same V8 that they had in the previous generation mainline AMG GT3 car, that being the Mercedes SLS. Again, running out wide at turn 14, looking for the more aggressive of exiting lines onto the opening straight here. Meanwhile, yellow flags out at turn 10 for the number 86. The 144 glued to the inside line, so Evans now back onto the racing line. He's going to be to the outside at turn 1. Gradient holds the inside. Could we be looking at a switchback here between Mercedes and Ferrari? He's got the run of it. So down towards turn 2, Lee Evans is on the outside line. Gradient looking at the inside. It's contact. Off goes Evans into the runoff there. And through goes Picconi up to 8th place. Evans will not be pleased. And he... Oh, it's contact again. Picconi goes off. Spun out into the runoff zone now on the exit of turn 3. Get a gander at this one on the replays. It got ugly, as we see there. I don't think that second part was intentional. Like we saw with the back end of that 444. On the exit of turn 2, it was a big swing out of him there, because the back end had been dirtied by running onto the marble. So when he got back onto throttle, you'll see it again. The back end swings away. He tries to get back on it, but it's already too late, and he slams in to the back end of looking at it there with Milan Picconi. He's now down to 10th place. Robert Ogan to 9th. Meanwhile, it's worth pointing out Rudolph's Laniacs now has a drive-through penalty to serve, so there are positions coming up in front. We also see a drive-through penalty now lodged in for Milan Picconi. So that's 2 drivers inside of that top 10 with drive-throughs to serve. 13 minutes left to go in this race. There is still the unique question here of what's going to happen for McNally. No, as of yet, recorded runs to the pit lane. And now making Three's company on drive-throughs is Ben Dexter. Down in 18th place. 3 drivers set to make a new visit to the pit by the end of this race. 12.5 minutes left to go. It's Alexander leading ahead of Donald. Laniacs could give away that last of the podium spots that was originally his to claim after McNally was set to come into the pit. So Owen Camu has been given a real Deus Ex here to move back into the podium and salvage his chances to lead the championship past the halfway mark. Picconi is in. It's been a frustrating day then for Milan Picconi. He's out of the paddock now. A very short pit lane there. We mentioned, I don't believe it is the shortest. It is definitely one of the shortest in this game. And that's what makes a lot of this very quick and snappy. It's quite satisfying, really, when you have a track like this where you've got plenty of overtaking opportunities, great following chances throughout the circuit, and on top of that, a very short pit lane. I mean, this is, I think, why a lot of the MSV circuits we spoke of earlier on in this broadcast when we drew comparisons up at turn 4 to Sheen, Curb and Coppice at Brands Hatch and Donington get the respect that they do, because they've got a lot of the same formula here as the Hungaroring. You see super close here in that fight for 7th. So that's swiftly back on here between Evans and Nzuzi. And Nzuzi covers the inside down towards turn 12. Meanwhile, Ben Dexter now having served his drive-through penalty. It's just Laniacs then, the outlier to this triple set of drive-throughs in the last 20 minutes of racing here. You see with a bit of a swing out there, out of turn 14. Still about 4 tenths up over Nzuzi, but it's been great defense so far from the 144. Now down through turn 1 here on lap 27. 10 minutes left to go here in the Hungaroring, and still plenty of stories yet to wrap up, this one among them. Excuse me. Just as we take a swig of the drink, take a look back down at the monitor and see Evans has descended upon Nzuzi there, having to actually back off and get onto the brakes early, out through both turn 3 and turn 4. Turn 5 now coming up. Nzuzi holds the inside. We see the inside start to open up a little bit there as he runs out wide, but not by enough of a gap for the Mercedes to have comfortably slotted in. Down through to turn 6 and 7 we go here in sector 2. And again, you can see the mounting frustration now. He's given him the lights a few times here. Evans is starting to get very frustrated in his efforts to get around Nzuzi because he's almost parking the bus in this situation. He's holding onto that inside line. He's making things more than difficult. Now, he's every reason to, but it's one of the most frustrating kinds of drives to go up against. And I think now, having broken a line in side by side on the exit of turn 11 in towards turn 12, Nzuzi's super late on the brakes. It's contact between the pair as they rub doors down through turn 12. Now up on the inside, and Nzuzi down to turn 13, late on the brakes again, and he knocks out the 444. Swinging into the midst there, here comes the 96 Aston Martin of Robert Hogan. He could see 2 positions, in fact 3. Laniax, actually no, it is more likely to be 2 there. Laniax now out of the paddock. Things have started to really escalate here. We're seeing some white knuckle stuff between Nzuzi and Evans. We see there a bit of a bump and run by the 444. Now we can see that second part was primarily desync. If we get a look on the displays in a moment's time, we see in the background though, Hogan sizing his chances around Nzuzi. It's going to be very rough there, and now goes Hogan. Nzuzi leapt for the inside, squeezed the Aston Martin there. Contact between the pair out of turn 2. Now up towards turn 4, Evans to 7th. So getting a glance at the rest of this grid then with 8 minutes left to go. There's still no word yet on this one. Sean McNally to come to the pit lanes within the next 8 minutes. We'll see exactly whereabouts is he scheduled to appear on this grid. When he does his pit stop, he stays out onto lap, by the looks of things here, lap 29. Nick Alexander leads here in the Hungaroring, up and ahead of Leroy Donald. Ferrari looking at a possible 1-2 today. Mercedes currently 3rd, but still one more pit stop to serve, courtesy of McNally. Owen Camu is looking scheduled to make 3rd by the end of this race. Jaden Johnson in 5th for the time being then. Rudolf Slaniax in 6th. We also see, looks like, oh, even more trouble here. We just catch on to Grady and Nzuzi, who is now down to the back of the top 10 after an incident at turn 11. The Ferrari now washed out and looking to take advantage then is the 332 Wesley Ambrose. We'll stay on board with these two as we recount the rest of the field. Lee Evans in 7th, Robert Hogan in 8th, Sam Brockman 9th, and Grady and Nzuzi in 10th. We've just seen there recently a drive through for Donnie Linton. On our screen to the moment, the 332 of Wesley Ambrose in 11th with Bentley. Behind him is Lewis McKenzie with Ferrari in 12th place. Bartek Kovalik in 13th. Daniel O'Brien 14th. Milan Picorni in 15th. Jonathan Barrett 16th. Alan O'Brien 17th. Timo Fire 18th. Ben Dexter 19th. Donnie Linton in 20th. Sebastian Scaparo in 21st. We see there side by side. That does invite in an opportunity out of Lewis McKenzie. It is a 3-way split we're seeing here for the last of those top 10 positions, courtesy of Nzuzi, Ambrose and McKenzie. Locally though, for McKenzie, this is a fight for 11th against Ambrose to be next in line to challenge Grady and Nzuzi for a top 10 spot by the end of this race. 6.5 minutes left to go here in Hungary. Out through turn 4. We'll go and catch on board if we can here with that Ferrari. It's a very unique angle to watch on with here with McKenzie. Often when we get on with these fights, we like to get towards the back of the pack of cars. We get a look of everyone up in front, down through turn 6, now turn 7. We see as well, he's not necessarily alone at the back of that field. There are 2 cars tucked in behind him. We see Bartek Kovalik and Daniel O'Brien. But really, the majority of the action's going up over his nose. That's what he's concerned with right now, is that Bentley. Moreover, that Ferrari in front. Still no updates then on McNally. He's playing extra long here on pit strategy with Mercedes. Pray tell, it's got to be one of the most confusing strategies of all then from that number 4. We're watching on with the 44 at this time. One of a lineage of number 4 cars, as it would be, with the number 4 being Sean McNally, the number 44 being Lewis McKenzie, and the number 444 being Lee Evans. If we had 4 numbers, I'd have no doubts in my mind there'd be a 4-4-4-4. 5 minutes left to go. It's a very sizable leap there, and it's contact between the 332 and the 44. And we see behind as well collected was the 35 of Bartek Kowalik. Get a look at this one. I mean, this is pretty cut and dry on the 44. He's gone for an inside line that I think frankly didn't exist, and moreover he's done that from a completely different postcode here. It was a bit of a risky one that the stewards will probably be looking over by the end of this race, because I do not see that one fly. McNally is finally in though, lo and behold here. After 56 minutes of racing, well, 55 minutes 40, just as he crossed the line. Finally into the pits goes Sean McNally. In terms of the nearest fights on track, Nzuzi and Mackenzie currently in the scope of things here. And it's more contact now. Mackenzie, a man brazen in his offensive. Off goes Nzuzi. I mean, get a glance at this one. 2 incidents in the span of a single lap. He's got a death wish at this point. Looking at the inside at turn 8. Oh, this man is in serious trouble now. Surely, if one incident wasn't bad enough, the second has definitely got to ring true to the stewards here. He's ringing the dinner bell for a penalty by the end of this race. We see here some action, albeit with a bit of desync, because we rejoin the field here with Grady and Nzuzi, Bartek Kowalik and Daniel O'Brien. 3.5 minutes left to go. It's also worth pointing out here, McNally has emerged just up and alongside Robert Ogan for, as it stands there, 7th place between the Aston and the Mercedes. Down through turn 2. We did say to keep an eye there on these two, McNally and Ogan, these two real hard chargers of the grid. We've seen them carve a line up through that top 10, and now they find themselves face to face with 3 minutes left to go. We're in and amongst the final laps of racing here for the rerun of round 3. The more tangential rerun of Silverstone will pop up at the end of the season. One is the new round 8, replacing Barcelona, which has now been shifted to round 7, so on and so forth as we... not round 8, sorry, round 6, which has now been dropped to round 5. You get the gist. You get the gist. And we'll get a look at that calendar after the race, because honestly, all of today has been rather confusing. We see here O'Brien versus Kowalik down through to turn 6 and 7. The BMW is going to be going slower through that middle sector, nursing that front end damage. There is also the consideration of Nzuzi as well. He's still quite a bit shaken up over the course of this race. He has got a little bit of front end damage, albeit not as much as the 35. Really, the only two drivers here who have got away from things with relatively minimal, if any, damage is O'Brien and Ambrose. We see O'Brien looking at the inside here on Kowalik, and it gets hairy as he's squeezed into the inside by the 35. Down through to turn 13 we go. He's going to be to the outside here on the BMW, and that does leave the door open for Wesley Ambrose to sneak through. So we see running out wide from turn 13 into turn 14, back on to the racing line for the number 88 as he drops back in behind Kowalik. Now we are entering among the run of final laps in this race, currently heralded by the arrival of Nick Alexander, looking at his 2nd career win this season after successes at the start of the season for him at round 1 in Brands Hatch. As he starts his final flying lap, it's going to be serious redemption for how things panned out for him in the last round at Zolder, where he ended up finishing out of the race in a provisional 22nd. That was a DNF for him in that race. Now he's going to be able to sort of stand proud and have turned that whole mess around, going back onto leading form here. It's a real salvage for him today. For Leroy Donald, this is a very curious one, because he finds himself with 15 points in the championship coming into today with 6th place currently under his control. With the absence of drivers in front of him like that of Howard Dunn, the top 5 does stand bare for the arrival of the number 14. We'll catch on with them though at the checkered flag. There's still action set to happen here, and we see now from the point of view of Milan Picconi as he charges up to the back end of Daniel O'Brien. This is the closest fight on track at the moment, 0.4 of a second between the pair. This is for 13th place between these two, as they are not far from crossing over into that final flying lap. Now, we'll be getting on board with the number 13 not too long from now to crown him the race winner, because he is not too far away from these drivers as it stands. The 999 of Jonathan Barrett, the latest in the line of drivers to pick up a drive-through penalty here in the Hungaroring. We see there a bit of a step out for O'Brien as Picorni continues to give chase here for 13th place. We'll have to catch on with these two in a moment's time. We see here with Nick Alexander down to turn 13 in the number 13. Looks to turn things around after an unlucky week in, almost said Zandvoort. Then we're going to Zandvoort next week at Zolder. The week before at round 2, it's round 3 where he sees redemption once more. Down to the checkered flag. He goes then at the end of round 3 in the Hungaroring, and it's Nick Alexander who wins in round 3 of season 4. A brilliant turnaround against misfortune at round 2. He's back onto leading form, his second career win this season. Brilliant form from the number 13, leveraging good consistency and form throughout. Leroy Donald to second in this race. Brilliant performance and a fantastic turnaround to round out that podium. Making his way to the line then, Owen Camu makes 3rd place after absolutely everything been thrown at him throughout today's race. We also see here, not far from the line, Jaden Johnson, who's had a brilliant spur of fighting throughout today's race. The Bentley finishes 4th. All in due course here, but we are still set to see the wrap up on quite a few fights here just outside of the top 10. Meanwhile, we also see Rudolph Laniacs to 5th, Lee Evans for 6th place, Sean McNally looking at 7th. But we're looking here with 2 fights in particular, one of which currently between O'Brien and Picorni, the other being Kovalik versus Nzuzi. And we see as it boils over down towards turn 12, Evans now officially finishes in 6th. McNally looking at 7th there. So Mercedes 6th and 7th for the end of this race. Up in front, we see here with Kovalik and Nzuzi. Meanwhile, Ogan in 8th. Brockman on his first ever race in this series finishes in the top 10, 9th. Mackenzie to 10th. And now we see the wrap up on these 2 fights. Nzuzi to 11th and Kovalik for 12th as it appears they're down to the line. And on the exit of turn 14, making their way to the line, Daniel O'Brien for 13th, Milan Picorni for 14th, and Wesley Ambrose for 15th place at the end of round 3. We see back on board then with the race winner, Nick Alexander with Ferrari, his 2nd win this season, and looks to possibly take the fight back to Owen Camu for the championship lead after a down-and-out performance in Zolder. He's back on top form, so this is definitely the kind of performance he's been aiming for throughout this season, and with 3 more rounds before the season's out, he has definitely got the chance to turn this back around starting from today. A brilliant performance then by Alexander, your race winner for round 3 of season 4 of the MSC ACC GT3 series. It's a Ferrari 1-2 as well here in the Hungaroring. A brilliant performance by Leroy Donald to take 2nd place. Owen Camu turned things around there after a very troubled race for the number 1. He came into today's race leading the championship, and today it is definitely going to be the start of a major war between himself and Alexander for that championship title. Other noteworthy finishing places there, Johnson to 4th, Evans and McNally 6th and 7th, Ogan to 8th as well, and Brockman in 9th among several drivers today. Some very, very exceptional performances throughout today's race. Brilliant stuff then as we wrap things up here in season 4 round 3. That's the end of today's broadcast here from TRTN. If you're joining us tomorrow, we've got one event on, and that'll be with the Competizione Performance League World Series. Just getting a glance as to where we'll be jetting off to for tomorrow's round of the championship. Tomorrow we head to Schuyler County, New York State, and the Watkins Glen International Circuit for the next round of the championship. It's going to be quite a lot of fun there. That'll be our last event though tomorrow for the broadcast weekend, as you'll not be joining us this Sunday for the NLRL Sunday League. They're on a week sabbatical due to the Easter holidays break. So go and enjoy your Easter Sunday with your families and friends and whatnot, as we'll see you next Sunday thereafter to pick back up on season 5 of the Sunday League. Until then though, that's all from us here on TRTN. A wonderful race then. Very well done to Alexander on his 2nd win of the season there, picking back up where he left off at round 1 in Brands Hatch after a down and out performance in Zolder at round 2. Great performance all round then. Brilliant stuff today. That's all from us. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, if we can get the words out. Take care and good night.
Baby, better get that straight. I think it's unbelievable how you give into the hands of fate.